Okay, we're back, and we're going to focus this time on trying to get some of these forms, some of these pages filled out with some content. And let's start with step one. But just kind of as a reminder, remember we want to get these fields on each one of the forms. And I've realized that we need it. So I have your first name, I have your last name, I have your email address, I have your password, I have your birthday, and then we are going to have an avatar, which is going to be an image that you can use. And then we're going to, sorry, an image that you can display along with the user's account. And then we need the avatar file. And when I get into that, I'll kind of explain what I'm doing. But for now, just so you know, we will need these fields. And I think just to keep things simple for now, I'm going to just comment them out. But I just wanted you to know that they were going to be necessary in the next phases of the project. Okay, so let's get some fields on our form. And one of the, actually, let's just, do we want to jump ahead? No, we won't jump ahead. So we're going to do it first with just a basic form, and then we will add some form validation once we know that we have the basic flow going. So let's add our form. We're going to add our form up here, and then we're going to move our next button inside of our form because we're going to need to submit this form. And so let's take this out, and we're just going to call set this to type equals submit. Oh, my bad. Submit. Okay, and so that's kind of how we're going to play that. And then we need to handle our click event. Submit, prevent, because we want to prevent it from the default action. And then we are just going to create a function. So handle submit is what we want it to call. And then we're going to come down here, and underneath our store, we'll say const handle submit. And here's where we will take the next action that we need to take. So just as a comment, right? And if we go back, no, we don't go back. Let's just hop right in here. And I'm going to do some typing and some cutting and pasting, so I'll probably just kind of speed up through this. So we have our first name, and then clearly we're just going to reproduce this. So we have first name, last name, and then birthday. So let's just fill that out. First name, last name, so we have the basic fills in. I created just some small styling to make this look okay. So, and I'm just going to drop in a style here. So we have our first name, our last name, our birthday, and then we have our button. And okay, so we have our fields. And so the next thing we want to do when we have our fields is when we click submit, we want to get these field form values and we want to save them into our store. So for now, so this handle submit will get called with an event. And if my memory serves me right, the fields, I should be able to get them off of the event object. Not any. Target elements. And then the fields that we want off of here are going to be first name, last name, birthday. So let's say first name, last name, birthday. And we'll dig into the types a little bit later because they're going to change when we put the form validation in. So I don't want to spend too much time on them right now. And then let's console log our values. And let's hop over to our app and Vue JS. Let's set a birthday. Say next. Well, next should have submitted it, but we're not going to see any change in the page. And then we have our elements. So our first name, our last name, birthday element. Let's be a little bit more specific because we want the value of them. So, and let's go over and see what we got now. Let's try this again. And so we have our first name, Pinia, last name, Vue, and then our birthday. So we have the values that we want inside of our submit. But the catch is we want these values to go into our store. And we want on submit, we want it to also move us to the next page. So what we're going to do is we'll go back over to our store and let's modify this next step. Update the store and move us to the next step. So we're going to say const store and then store patch, because we're only going to update part of it. And we are going to take our first name, last name, birthday, and we're going to just patch them in. So we should be able to just say, once again, F first. That won't work because there'll be variable data each time. So we can't destructure this. We're just going to call this form data. And then what we'll do is we will just pass in the form data that we get. And let's set this to any. We can remove this. We can remove this. And that should be it. So what will happen is if we go back to our wizard, this time in here, we're going to use our store. Next step, and then we're going to pass in this object. And so this time when we call next step, the form data will be first name, last name, birthday. And we needed to leave it generalized because as we move through the rest of the pages, the data that's going to get passed in will be different. All right, so let's give this a go and see what we get. So let's go back here. So it looked like it worked as it moves us to the next page. And then let's see what we have in our store. I didn't pass the values in. See, it passed in the element object. I wanted to pass the values. Same mistake I made earlier. So let's go back here. And yeah. And now let's give it another go. All right. So that's interesting. Account. Oh, I didn't pass it into account info. See, everything's in account info. I pushed it up to the top level. Let's go. Let's make this edit. Let's make an edit there. This should be inside of my store. This should actually be account info, and then wrap this. Because the way my store is defined, account info is just an object in my store. It's not at the top level. And you can tell that by looking here. See, my state has a account info object, and the account info object has these other fields in it. So let's refresh this again, and hopefully third time will be a charm. So we'll go back, Once again, put the data in. Next, and then let's look and see what we got. What? Did my page not get refreshed? Oh, I didn't save. Let's save the page. So we're going to save the page. We have our changes pushed into account info. Let's go back, reset everything. Aaron Saunders, date. Next. Scroll down. Look at our reactive object. We see we have the right information in it, and we see we moved to step 2. So that's how we're going to get our data in. And so let's quickly see what our missing fields are. So we have our email, our password. We'll do email, we'll do password, we'll do birthday on this page, and then we'll leave the we'll create a third page later, like I said, which will take the avatar. So we should, let's look, what do we have on page 2? Page 2 does have the previous, which is a little bit different, but we could take a lot of the same code from this first page and move it over to page 2. So let's start with, we know we're going to have some more input, so let's take our styles and go over to step 2 and drop our styles in. We know that we are going to have to do a form submit. So let's take our submit and move it over to wizard. So we'll put it right underneath here. And then we know we need some different fields up top here in our form. So let's just, we'll just take the basic structure that we have here for the form. Actually, let's just take everything inside this div and we'll just use what we need and then remove the rest. So now we're in step 2. We'll just pop the div on top here. Let's see what our form is looking like. So, all right, so we got step 2. We have an extra next button that we don't need in there. We can remove this next button down here, and we can remove this, and we can move this previous button up here. And then I think I have an extra div, and let's remove my extra div and see what we got. All right, we're back to where we were last time. And so what are the fields we said we needed to add? We're going to do an email, password, and birthday all on this one page. Let's get birthday out of there. We can leave this store previous step here. We have our submit for our next. We just need to make sure we get the right field. So here we're just going to say email, password, and then so we're just renaming the fields to get the right values passed over to our store. Password, and we don't need a last name. We just have 2 fields we need to pass. Our previous is right. This is right. That looks pretty good so far. Let's go over to, all right, so let's start again. Aaron Saunders, set my birthday. Next, has the email and password in it already. Next, now I'm on a summary page. Let's take a look at my wizard, see what I have in my wizard. And so I have all the fields that I wanted. Now, what I want to do is, let's see if we're going to get this. See, I'm losing these fields as I go back, and I shouldn't, because I already have them here in my store. So let's see if we can get a way to solve. I mean, I have a solution for when we are validating the field, but let's see if we can find a solution before that. So if we go here, I don't want to introduce the V model right now because we're just going to end up taking it out again. Can I do this? Value equals store.account info dot first name. Well, I certainly can't do it like that. I need to bind it. Store.accountinfo.firstname. Oh, it's empty now because I've moved back and forth and I lost it. So let's try this. Next, we have it. Previous. All right, so that'll hold it. So we'll use a solution for now. We'll just pull the value out of our store and put it back in there. So now whatever value we have in the store, so it's got that 302, it's going to save there. So when I go to the next page and then I go back, I'm still going to get my value in there. And so let's, because this is just putting the default email, let's type something new in here. And we have our value saved. But when we go back, it's still putting whatever is my saved password in there. And so we want to set that the same way we did on the previous page. And so we're just going to use this exact same approach. Let's go to step 2. And now you see we have the right values in there. So I can move back and forth and save the values that are in my wizard. And let's just get our summary page right. We're just going to put the content that we have in our store and just display it here in the summary. So let's come back here and let's go to our summary page. We have access to the store. And so we're just going to do this simple for now because we'll style it all later. We're just going to do a JSON stringify, and then we're going to take our store, our account info, and we're going to, just so it gets styled properly, we're going to put it in a pre-block. You know what? I use this all the time and I don't even know what pre stands for, but it should give us what we're looking for. So here on my summary, I have my last information. So go back and I can even hop in here and change this and get my updates, go all the way back. And so I'm managing the state as I move through my form, which is what I wanted to do. And so you could kind of see some of the stuff that we've done with Pinia, and I wanted to kind of demonstrate some of the things that we can do with Pinia, but that also one of the important things that we've been doing through this whole video series is we have been testing stuff. So let's go ahead and test some things. So let's break out and let's create a separate store for separate test file for Pinia test. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll come in here and anything that's not related to Pinia we'll pull out of this one. So we'll just have Pinia tests in here. And why is this blowing up? Oh, because we need parameters in here now. I think I can get away with passing some empty values. Let's see, let's take a look at our tests and see if it's happy or not. So I believe I'm running tests. Yeah, so it looks like everybody's still happy, even though I'm not passing any values in. But we're going to write some more specific tests that'll test the values getting passed in. Let's start. So this is Pinia tests. So let's remove the stuff that we don't need here. I'm going to use Mountain later, so I'll leave it. And then let's go back to my basic tests. And these weren't wrapped in this. They got my Pinia test down here. But my regular tests weren't wrapped in a describe. So let's do that. So now our basic UI tests in here, and they're still fine. And let's look at, so everything looks good. Okay, our Pinia tests and our basic tests. So let's look at what do we want to test. Okay, we're going to test out our form submission works. and we're going to want to mount here. So what we need to do is we need to mount our component. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, well, let's start with that. Let's see if our wizard1 exists, and it looks like it does so far. And then the next thing we want to do is we need to find the fields that exist on our wizard step 1 and put some data in them. So we have our first name, our last name, and our birthday. And the pattern will be the same for everything. So let's go back to our test. The first thing is to find these objects. We take our wrapper, then there's a find, oh, not view wrapper. Oh, I'm outside of my test. That's the first problem. And the second problem is I haven't mounted my component yet. So we don't need this. And then now it should work. And basically what you're using a selector, which is very similar to an HTML selector. And so what we're going to say is find input with name equal first name. Close, and then we have to put this first name here inside of brackets. And then that should give us excuse me, the first name element. And then what we can do is we can check if it exists, which makes sure that we're on the page, and then we can wrap this with an expects. Expects wrapper first name should exist to be true. And it's expect, not expects. And test form submit works. Missing required prop. Oh, I'm trying to mount hello world. I'm not mounting hello world. I want to use my Vue1, wizard Vue1. All right. Why did it fail? Oh, because it doesn't have a store. So yes, I do need to use Pinia here. So let's just take the Pinia setup that we used before and bring it over here to our basic tests. And now it passed. So my page is rendering, and I know I have a first name element on the page. So let's put the rest of the checks on there. It's all checked. All my fields are there. But now the next thing is I want to put some data in there. And we're going to use kind of the same approach. So we're going to find my wrapper. We're going to find my element, and then we're going to set value. So for name, we're going to say Aaron. First name is Aaron. Last name, Saunders. And then birthday. What was the format of the birthday? Do we have it in here still? Yeah. It's year, month, day. So let's go back here and set this to my birthday. The year, month, day. Check there's no errors so far. Oh, why did it fail? Oh, couldn't find last name. So last name. Okay, so now we fill out the form with our values, and then we want to, basically what we want to do now is we want to, let's go back. We want to simulate clicking this next button. And since this next button if we look at our code, this next button is a form submit button, so that's how we're going to find it, and then we'll just click it. So let's go back to my basic tests. Let's find it. Wrapper find button type submit. I'm going to trigger a click. And then, because this was something I spent a lot of time digging into, because I am doing a submit button on this form, I need to attach my element, my component to the document on the page. So you say attach to document. I believe that's it. Oh, no, document. So you say attach to document body. And I'll include in the notes kind of where I found this, because I was really stuck on this problem for a long time. Okay, and so now once you trigger the click, that should submit everything, and then our value should change. And so the first easy test is expect store.step to be 2. Oh, sorry, store.step to be 2. And let's use our use store. Use wizard store to get us our store, and then make the check. So let's see. So it passed. So just we make sure we're looking at the right test. So we're doing this test submit works, and so far, so good. And actually what's funny is this is the text that's coming from the submit function, which is another way we know it works. So if I go here and I go to page step 1, you can see that when I click submit, I have this console log inside here, so I know it's calling the handle submit. And then now what we want to do is we want to test to make sure that the data is inside the store. So let's go back to our tests, basic tests, and now not only can we expect the store value set to be 2, we can check all the rest of these. And it passed the test, so we know that it worked. And let's just play with this a bit. So if I change this to 1, and I don't change this down here, my test failed. And it failed because the data wasn't the same. So that's a basic test that we did along the way to make sure that things are working the way that we expect them to work. Test form submits, that works. Step 1, and then we should be able to pretty much do the exact same thing for step 2. So let's just copy all of this. And for step 2, and we will load in step 2's component, and we'll change these. It's email, password, and we'll change this. And we can leave the type submit trigger. We, at the end of this, it should be 3. And then we just want to check our values. So then we'll check password, email. So value, let's change this value, should be hey@mail. We'll just use anything password, and then we click, then @mail, and password. And let's see what we get. All right, what did not work? Expected 3, received 2. So why didn't it bump the number? Oh, I know why. Because when this store gets mounted for, oh, what am I doing? So this should be wizard step 2. But also when this store gets mounted, the first thing we need to do is we need to bump the step, because the step starts at 1. So if we go back and we look at my store initializes with my step at 1. I need it to be at 2 when I'm testing Wizard 2. So what we can do is there's a couple of ways we can do this, but for now the easiest way is to just come into my Wizard step 2, and when I start this test, let's go back to my test, where I think, let's move my store up. Let's get this a little bit earlier. And then right here, I believe I read in the documentation that when you're testing, you can just assign directly. So I believe I can just assign this to 2 like that. To be password, oh, I got those backwards. To be password, password. Okay, fill out form. Email, password. Oh, and I put these backwards. So this should be email, and this should be password. And now my test passed. And then one other thing we want to do is, as you can see, I'm calling this and I'm actually using the real store. Here you can use this concept called a create testing Pinia. And by default, this will mock all of your calls. And so all you need to do is just check here to see if they actually have been called. And so we'll just do just one test with the mock. You can make some more if you want to. But you can see what they're doing a little bit differently here is that when they're mounting here, they're setting the plugin to a test plugin. So we'll just copy. Let's go. Actually, let's do this. Let's go. How can I test this? Yep, this should still work. So we're going to go here, and we're going to test form submit to works step 2. And so what we'll do is we'll take this, and we'll just duplicate this, and we'll say test form submit step 2 mocked. And you saw that we needed to do something a little bit different with the way we mounted our plugin. So let's just grab this, and inside of global plugins, we're going to just drop this in here. We want to leave this attached here and do it underneath that. And then let's import. I just split out the Pinia stuff from here, and I'm just bringing it all back. So did I load in that other library? This Pinia testing, let's put this in and see if I remember to load it. Otherwise, we're going to have to install it to get this to work. Okay. Expected 2 to be 3. I wonder why it even did that. So since we're mocking the call, the step won't get incremented. So we're not going to test that in this mock. We're just going to test that it actually called the, when I click this button and call submit, it's supposed to call the next step. So what we're going to do is we're just going to confirm that it actually called that on the store. And so how we can do that is we can get rid of that. We can do exactly what they did here in the sample, where we need to use a store. Here's a port where it says state can be directly manipulated here. All right, so I already used my store up there. Step is set to 2, so we know that it gets mounted. And then what we want to do is expect. So expect when all this is done that store dot next step. Let me spell this right. Oh, to have been called once. Right? So let's see, does this work? And it worked. So this is just basically saying that it knows that I hit the submit button and this thing was called once. So if I take this out, and now test failed, because it never called next step because submit button wasn't clicked. We can test this check to see if it was called with the right values also. So let's see. Next step, to have been called with. And this should tell the arguments that it got called with. We can verify them. I haven't really done this before, but let's see. I believe that we're calling this with email. And this is our email value. And then password. Okay. Oh, I didn't uncomment my button trigger, so let's uncomment this. And it worked. So it confirmed that even though I didn't actually call the real store, I just called the step. I just called the test store. That I did call next step, and also when I call next step, I did I did pass it the proper variables. And so that's another way to test it without kind of actually updating your store. So if your store is writing to a database or doing something else and you don't want to kind of have all that involved, you can just mock the calls and test that your store is working properly like that. These are still the it's just logging out the information that was passed and logging out a specific step. But that's what we have here. I think that this is probably about 30 minutes and probably a good place to stop. So what we did a lot of, I think we did a fair amount of testing, so I hope you found the testing part beneficial. We showed how to set up our pages, how to capture the information, how to update the value in the wizards to the store, and we showed how you can summarize it all by looking at the store in the end, which is what we did on our summary page. Next, next. And we have all the values from the store. The other, what else did we show? We showed the previous and the next. We showed our store being updated appropriately. And I think that we showed how to mock things. We showed how to test our Pinia store. The next thing we're going to do in the next video is we're going to take a look at this library that I found that was expired by React-Form. I do React development also. I love React-Form. And when I found this tool that I could use that can help me do form validation really easily, I just said I definitely need to give this a try. And what we will do with this is we'll add the form validation in to keep you from moving back and forth through the application unless the fields have been validated. And so we'll do that in the next video. What we're going to do is we'll allow you to, on the last page of the wizard, I'll go back to my wizard, before the summary, I want to have one more page, and allow you to upload a file and actually see a thumbnail preview of what the file's going to look like and everything, save it to the store, and then in the summer you'll be able to upload that to the database. That's a little bit more complicated, so that's why I broke it out separately. I want to write some tests for that, and we also need to kind of validate that. So we'll save that kind of for its own separate video, and then after that we'll probably move on to integrating Firebase or Supabase. I'm still leaning towards Supabase. Leave a comment below to actually persist this information to actually create an account, and then just so you can do some read and write, we'll do some read and write with it. And that's probably where we will wrap it, unless I get some good ideas for some other things to add to the series. So right now I've already released a video. This will be the second video. You'll definitely have a third one, which will do the file upload and the form use hook. And then there'll be one last one that I believe that'll integrate some sort of persistence layer. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Please make sure you like and subscribe and share with your friends. Bye.